Probably one of the best known young college founders of a company that went, huge is Michael Dell. And Michael has returned to his company 3 or 4 years ago. Actually, he never really left. He was chairman and a very active one. And since then, effected a significant sort of pivot in Dell's business. And we're going to talk about that and more. So please join me in welcoming Michael Dell to the stage. Come over here. Get a tight squeeze. Perfect.
Great.
Did you ever think you would be like the wise, the sage, elder statesman of the founder entrepreneur class, as opposed to, if you look around the valley and you see all these founders that are 22, 24, 25 years old. And
Yeah, it's kind of weird. People come up to you and they say, I bought one of your machines when I was in high school. I guess that just means I'm getting old.
Oh, well, it happens to all of us, I'm afraid. Tell me about when you told me backstage you never really left Dell. You were chairman and you were an active one during the period where you weren't CEO. But why did you come back and re-engage as CEO? What was it that led you to that decision?
We started the company 27 and a half years ago, and the business in its first 20 or so years did quite well. It grew to substantial size and things were going quite nicely. And it had a monolithic business model, which was relatively straightforward, and it just kind of worked until it didn't work as well. And so
what happened that predicated its stopping to work so well?
I think there were changes in the industry, and one of the things we found is that as we kept making more and more powerful hardware, and we'd go to our customer and we'd say, hey, we have this new server and it has gigabytes and petabytes and megabytes and blah, 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 blah. Customers sort of look at us like, don't really care about your shiny new server, right? What the heck do you know about my business? And if you know something about my business and the problem that I'm trying to solve, then I want to talk to you. And so what were those problems? It was make my supply chain work better, help me with better outcomes for my patients, want my school to work more effectively so we get, more successful students, want to redo my manufacturing, whatever it may be, whatever the company was trying to accomplish. So we had to change the company from a product company to a services and solutions company. It still makes products, but that involved a pretty significant shift. Lots of new investment organically, lots of acquisitions, lots of new capabilities, lots of talent, and that's really what we've been doing, and it's working. We're having record earnings. We're enjoying some pretty good success with that. Still much more to do, but it's an exciting time.
Now you focus more on what would be called the enterprise market than the consumer market, even though I think most of us remember a lot of the consumer branding that Dell's done over the years. Can't get that dude, I got a Dell, out of my head.
Even though what's interesting about that is, the consumer business at Dell has always been the smallest of the businesses that we've had. Even though, from a sort of marketing and communication standpoint, it may have made the most noise. Our business was always centered in business, right, and institution and government. And that's really the vast majority of the company's revenue and profit today. We're still in the consumer business.
Yeah.
But
not planning on spinning it out or selling it.
No, we're completely committed, and we're not going to change our mind about that.
Yeah. So when you pivot your business to...
And I'm sure about that, by the way.
I didn't push. I just kept it. We'll get back to that. When you pivot your business to, I make really great boxes that are, that match my competitors but maybe a little cheaper, which seemed to be kind of what Dell was really good at doing, like less expensive but as good or better as a product, to I understand your business, hospital chain or whatever, and I can help you run your business more efficiently. What do you actually need to buy? What do you need to change in your company in order to do that? Because you're talking about a pretty significant shift.
Well, you know, I've had the opportunity to kind of witness it over a long period of time, and you know, the way it sort of works is you start out, let's say you're serving a company that makes airplanes, for example, right? And you start out providing them with the simplest of things, which is actually a product. And then you get into a conversation with them, and they're looking at, well, gee, you know, the product is great, but we really need to have help in how do we deploy it, how do we service it, how do we maintain it, and how do we do new things, and how do we do it around the world, and you know, we have all these new things we want. So if I look at our relationship with the company that makes the airplanes, you know, most of our business with them is not products anymore. It's services, and that happened over about a 15-year period. Now, we built inside Dell a pretty large services organization. We bought Perot Systems. We bought a great company called SecureWorks in managed security services. You know, 9 acquisitions just in the last 12 months. So now we have, you know, about 40% of the company's people inside the company are in services. And if you take healthcare as an example, you know, where 5 or 10 years ago we might have gone to a hospital and said, hey, you want some shiny boxes?
Right.
We got them. You know? and you know, hospital would kind of say, yeah, maybe we need some shiny boxes. But what we're really trying to do is have better outcomes for our patients. So right now we are the #1 provider of healthcare IT systems in the world. Over half the physicians in the United States use Dell systems in one form or another. And those are things like hospital information systems, electronic medical record systems, evidence-based medicine, affiliated physician systems. Cloud, we have a cloud archive for medical images. It has about 4.5 billion images. So it's
somewhere in there is the MRI of my neck, I know.
Yeah. And it's secure, protected, encrypted. Don't worry.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about, because you've got a room full of web entrepreneurs here, and we've been talking about this idea of the data frame, and I actually want to share that data of my MRI with everybody so that there can, not because I think it should be famous, but because I want smarter people than me, doctors and others, to be able to compare data and see patterns and come up with better approaches to you know, diagnosis and medicine and proactive approaches and so on. Are you, with your view into that industry, are you seeing that happen? Because you are starting to create a layer at Dell of healthcare IT, right? But is it talking to each other and getting smarter because of the aggregate data that is being accumulated? Or is it still siloed?
Well, silos are one of the big challenges in IT healthcare, and breaking down the silos and having fewer disparate applications. It's sort of like if you think about IT 30 or 40 years ago and what does modern IT look like, this is where we're taking healthcare. And there's an enormous opportunity to use all this data for better outcomes. And certainly, you know, there are some hospitals and caregiving organizations that are way ahead, and we're, you know, helping them get there. But having standards and having a common way to archive information, just a fairly simple thing. If you think about all the practice disciplines within a hospital, each of them typically would have a set of machinery and silos of data, and these things would not really talk to each other, let alone you want to share, you know, your records among various doctors that may operate within different systems. And so that's very much the kind of stuff we're working on.
I want to just pivot a tiny little bit and ask you a question that I'm sure, because we're going to have Q&A and the mics are here, guys, so you can come up to them in a little bit. And just ask you in the most gentlemanly way I can, how you feel about what's going on at HP right now. I mean, they're the #1 in the business. They have been for some time. You guys have traded that baton every so often. Now, it may be that you're counting the wrong thing now, which is you were counting number of PCs or servers shipped, and as you guys are both pivoting your businesses to services. But, you know, you've been battling these guys for 27 and a half years, so how does it feel to watch that unfold?
I think any uncertainty or confusion that exists is an opportunity, and it's a great opportunity for us to describe to our customers and potential customers our commitment to what we do and our investments that we're making inside our business. No question, we've seen significant opportunities as a result of the confusion and uncertainty there. If you think about the enterprise customers, these are customers that think about what's going to happen in a year or two, and you know, that sort of thing just erodes their confidence very quickly. So plenty of opportunity for us. Also with partners, we have 100,000 partners now in our Partner Direct program, really fast growing, particularly recently.
No correlation, I'm sure. They've recently, HP has made a couple of moves that I'm curious how you counter them. One of them is they've thrown some uncertainty around their PC business. You know, although I don't know whether Meg Whitman, who was invited to come but couldn't come, she felt it was a little too early for her to step into the spotlight and declare her strategy for HP. But she's been here before. But uncertainty about whether or not they're going to continue in PCs, you've made it clear you are. The second is the web OS business and the phone business. So what is, I should say, the mobile device business? What is your strategy there, and are you excited about that business, or is it sort of just one piece of the consumer pie? Are you going deep into enterprise with it?
You know, I think if you think about the client device, whether it's a mobile phone or tablet or notebook or some other derivative type product, it's pretty hard to have a complete end-to-end solution for customers if it ends, right? If you don't have the whole thing. So,
right.
So we think the client devices are very important. Some of those we're going to make, but let's face it, I mean, there are billions of these devices. So we're helping our customers manage the devices that their end users are bringing into their environment. How do you secure them? How do you protect them? Absolutely, we're making our own. You know, the PC, you know, look, there'll be 400 million or so PCs sold this year. There are 1.5 billion PCs in the world. There'll be 2 billion PCs in a couple of years. That's a big market. And, you know, one of our customers, just to give you a sense for how we think about this, is a company called Tencent.
Yeah.
And Tencent has 650 million users that all use mobile phones in China. And pretty much every speaker you've had here of size is a significant Dell customer, right? And so we're providing, you know, a lot of infrastructure to those companies and helping you know, our customers figure out how to deal with this explosion of devices. You add in all the sensors, it's tens of billions of devices. We've got an enormous business around, obviously, the data center,
right,
which is heavily impacted. Every time somebody gets on a mobile device, they're pulling that data from somewhere. You know, John was up here from eBay. We're building these massive scale data centers for them. Twitter, Adobe, Microsoft, on and on. Yeah. Salesforce.com.
Yeah, you're just going down our speaker list here.
All great customers. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Facebook?
Facebook too.
Yeah, I know that they had a big deal with you a couple of years ago. I didn't know if that. But what about the streak? What about the, you know, it's sort of, if there's a, you know, people are anticipating that somebody's going to come out with a tablet that is going to give the iPad a run for its money. Is it going to be you?
If you look at the tablet market, you'd have to say right now it's an iPad market, right? You know, the Android stuff has not done fantastically well, right? I think I'm being fair in my characterization there.
You're the expert. I just ask questions.
Yeah. And if you said, well, who are the challengers? The challengers are Android and Microsoft. And I think Microsoft has a pretty good shot with Windows 8. We're pretty excited about what they're doing with WinRT. The enormous lift that comes with the huge numbers of PCs that get sold, and also the continuity of application base from tablets to PCs to phones to all sorts of hybrid devices. Android's doing very well in handsets as well. So I think there's going to be a great
You're going to have an
there.
Android and a Windows version, right? Or am I reading rumors that
I'm not here to announce any new products.
Damn. Let me pivot again.
You like to pivot, don't you?
Yeah, just sort of, yeah. Let's talk about social media. You are one of the rare CEOs of a massive multi-billion-dollar company who not only uses Twitter and now Google+, you actually really use it. Like, it's something that you seem to enjoy to do, and I imagine that your PR and general counsel teams are always on tenterhooks because they're not sure what you're going to say.
Yeah, but they figured out there's really nothing they could do about that, so it's okay.
It is a company with your name on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what drew you to using these platforms, and what is it that you get out of your use of them?
It kind of goes back to my childhood, and
you can lie down if you'd like.
Well, it's been time of reflection recently. Seriously,
really.
When I was about 14 years old, got an Apple II. And one of the things I did, besides take it apart and figure out how all the parts worked, which was really fun, was set up a bulletin board system. And I was one of these crazy kids, running BBS, right? Before CompuServe and AOL and the Source.
Did you get those BBS newsletters and magazines that they had?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah.
I did too.
And
We're such dorks.
so that was really fun. But what I saw was this power of sharing, and I've always been kind of into that. And we think about it at Dell as how do you have a company with big ears that's learning all the time and listening. So we have billions of conversations with customers. And certainly, when the internet came along, that was like rocket fuel for Dell with Dell.com. And so, we just look at social media as this is a fantastic way to collaborate, share, learn at greater speed and greater scale. So we have this thing, social media command center at Dell, where we're listening all the time. We turned it into a service where we'll help companies build their own. And we love all this stuff.
That reminds me, when you say you turned that into a service, the listening piece of it, which I'm sure is a service that your partners love, that means you're competing with Mark Benioff at Salesforce, who has exactly that service at Salesforce. And
we use a lot of his tools. When I say service, we're helping companies implement their own social media command centers.
So you may be implementing some of Radian 6's tools
Absolutely.
or whatever. Okay. But the point that I'm trying to make is that since everyone's pivoted into software and services, the competitive landscape has gotten a bit confusing in a way.
Everybody's in everybody else's space. I mean,
right.
There's definitely a lot of confusion.
Right. And you are, having been at the top for almost 3 decades of a company as it grew radically and then became a public company driven by those metrics to the extent that you have to be, what advice might you have for young entrepreneurs who are just sort of staring at the foot of the mountain, so to speak, and are looking to climb it, and you've had 3 decades of experience doing that. Is there anything that you've learned along the way you think that this crowd might benefit from?
There that was like unbelievably difficult, but if you look back on that, you say, well, what would have happened if you hadn't taken that leap?
Right.
You probably wouldn't have had enough scale to make it to the next level.
Right.
So in the first 3, 4, 5, 7 years of the company, I mean, we were rolling the dice big time, and fortunately, it all worked out.
So you encourage the roll of the dice.
I think if you're going to go big or go home, certainly if you want to do something at scale.
Yeah. If there are questions for Michael, the mics are right up here. I've got a little.
It's a little different when you got 110,000 people and 60 billion in revenue. You got to run the company a little differently, but we're still making some pretty big, bold bets.
Yeah, I'm sort of just trying to process over 100,000 employees and $60 billion in revenue. That's big. He said, yes, it is.
It's a good start.
We have questions right here.
Forgive me if you get asked this a lot. It's Apple earnings today at 1 p.m. and about 14 years ago you said that you would demolish it and sell it back to shareholders. Do you regret saying that, seeing as though it's now trading at $400 and Dell is trading at around the price Apple was trading then, $16, and that the Apple market cap is $400 billion, making it the most valuable company in the world?
Well, it's a great question and a great opportunity for me to clarify what I said.
Thank you, Alexia.
Let me start by saying that our stock has gone up 16,000% since we went public, so not feeling too bad about that. But the question that was asked to me was, what would I do if I was Apple CEO?
And the time frame being?
It was 1997.
Yeah.
By the way, were any of you there in the Gartner symposium when I was asked? But here's the important thing. My first 2 answers to the question were, I really don't want to answer that question. Why don't you give me another question?
Hey, Rip, take notes.
Okay. My third answer to the question was obviously the one you repeated. But the meaning of my answer was that I am the CEO of Dell. I don't think about being the CEO of any other company, and I would never imagine myself. I'm not a CEO for hire, okay? And so if you ask me, what would I do if I was the CEO of any company, it's just not something I really think about. And so my answer was largely misconstrued, as you have stated, but certainly have tremendous respect for Apple. They've done incredibly well, and obviously Steve will be missed and was a friend, and got to know Steve. I met Steve when I was 16 years old. And anyway.
How did you meet him?
Steve came to Houston, Texas, to an Apple user group meeting.
And you were there with your Apple II?
I was there with my Apple II.
Awesome. So your answer is basically you couldn't imagine yourself being CEO of another company. So whatever
I'm not a CEO for hire. I am Michael Dell, the founder of Dell. So I don't think about being the CEO of another company.
So if someone had asked you the same question about McDonald's, you would have said, sell it back to shareholders?
I would have said, why don't you give me another question? But which is what I said the first 2 times I answered the question. I got frustrated the third time and tried to shut the
when we were running, when I was part of the team that was running Wired at that very time, we felt that Apple was over, and we were very sad about it, and so we created a cover with the Apple logo and a crown of thorns and one word underneath it, pray. And so that was pretty much the vibe in 1997 about Apple, is that it was over. So I think that was what was in the air at the time. And then we prayed, and then a miracle occurred, and Steve took it over.
That was some prayer.
And then he made a product you can't take apart, the iPhone, which bothers my son to no end. Actually, he has taken his apart. All right, we'll move on to the next question. Thank you.
Thank you.
So when you think and I'm not going to apologize for our stock going up 15 or 16,000% since we went public.
So will every new Windows 8 PC that you sell, from the laptop to the desktop, be touch and have touch standard? And when you think about hardware ergonomics, as a software developer, that's important to me. How does that have to change so that touch feels right on a desktop, feels right on a laptop at a high level?
Touch is going to be a huge deal. It's already finding its way into a lot of the products that we have. I wouldn't say it'll be 100% because we provide, a wide range of products to all sorts of different customers, but it'll be a pretty high percentage. And certainly you have to reimagine the device when you incorporate touch.
Yeah. All right, last question. We're running a bit late, but I appreciate you taking extra time.
Sure.
Dean Takahashi from
Dean.
VentureBeat.
Good to see you. Hey, Dean.
You mentioned that Facebook's a customer, but I guess Facebook and some of these companies with really big data center needs are starting to go straight to Taiwan to buy their servers and sort of build them themselves. And they seem to want to cut out the margin of companies like HP or Dell. How can you guys deal with that?
Well, in the last decade, we've sold a little over 15 million servers. And one of the things we know is that the servers are dispersed among an enormous array of data centers and customers and places. And certainly there'll be shifts in how customers buy them and whether they want this thing or that thing. Hear what you're saying, and some of that is absolutely going on. We still see servers as a strong growth market, and certainly a lot of our activity has been around innovating in terms of, what does the next generation data center look like? What's a modular data center? A lot of activity around data storage. We bought EqualLogic and Compellent, just bought Force 10 Networks, and sort of building these super highly efficient data centers for companies of all sizes.
Well, please join me in thanking Michael for coming and giving us a bit of his time. Thank you very, very much. Great. I'll let you go up this way. Right there.